All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to not another Chris Allen recap, even though we haven't had one of those in a while. Not another reaction video to a new type of video, which is basically reaction, which is my opinion on The Man in the High Castle. So, I didn't feel like it warranted its own Chris Allen recap, although it could have been mixed in with that. I just thought I would give my opinions on The Man in the High Castle Season 1. It's on Amazon. It's a pretty decent show. I'll explain how I feel about it, what I thought it was good, what I thought it was bad, and in general, just my opinion. It's that simple. Now, I've been pretty sad recently. I would say very sad recently. But you know what has not contributed to that? This show. This show is really fucking good. Albeit looking back at it, because I've sat on it for a few days now. You know, it's been a few days since I've seen season one. It's not great. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good, especially if you like certain things. Now, excuse me. Now, in general, for my opinions on stuff, I'm basically gonna be going into mild to heavy spoilers. I don't want to keep these spoiler free because that's too much fucking work and it's not worth it. I'll try and avoid major spoilers, but I'm going to be spoiling some things here. But anyway, if that's alright with you, then keep watching. So, Man in the High Castle, what is it about? It's basically about Germany and Japan in World War II somehow, some way, getting the atom bomb instead of the United States, and they use it on us. And you find very quickly that that was the main deciding factor in the United States' rise to power, you know, in our history. But in the show's history, it basically won Germany and Japan the war. So, the thing I didn't like about the show was in the beginning, they kind of bombard you with a lot of information, and they kind of have to. Because in the beginning, you have to see how different things are, and the dynamic of how a German and Japanese controlled US is, and they introduce a lot of different conflicts and a lot of different characters in the beginning, and it makes it kind of tough to wrap your head around and follow around. I'll be honest, in the beginning, like, they introduced a lot of characters that either were, like, only for that episode, or maybe, like, a little bit more than that episode, while introducing the main cast, and it was just a lot. I felt like it was a lot. Now, a little spoiler right here is the Germans control the right side of the US, and the Japanese control the left side. And one thing they really do well is in this show, you could tell there's tension with the Japanese and the Germans, right? So after the war, what basically ends up happening is the Japanese and the Germans under Hitler, because Hitler's still alive. Hitler basically wants peace between the Japanese because they're allies, you know, they helped each other during the war. And he wants to have good relations with them. But the problem is, this show takes place in the 1960s, a little after, and Hitler has Parkinson's, so Hitler's dying. And now all the Germans are vying for power when they assume he's going to be gone. And a lot of them don't share the sentiment of we should have shared with the Japanese. And it really goes to show just how much different the Japanese are from the Germans, because the Germans have German fucking technology. They have jets. They have really good fucking technology. They still have the atom bomb, while the Japanese have ships. And one of the best parts about this show is in the fucking show itself. Even the Japanese know this. The Japanese themselves know, like, we can't really fucking step up to the Germans. Like, we go around in boats across water that takes, like, days, if not weeks. And the Germans, excuse me, the Germans go in a jet from fucking New York to California in less than 2 hours because they have like rocket jets in the 60s. It's insane and it's done so well. In the series, I've said in episode 1, they kind of throw a lot at you, but what ends up happening throughout the series is it kind of gets levied out to two main sides, the West and the East, which is the Japanese side and the German side. And they don't really focus too much on the German side, I would say, until maybe like mid to later on in the show. They mostly focus a lot on the Japanese side, which is the West, right? So it kind of boils to that. While stuff is happening in the West, stuff is happening in the East, and they like to show you a lot of the time what's happening at the same time, because The two main characters of the show are Joe and Juliana. And I'll put it out here right now. My opinion on Juliana is fucking terrible. This character, the actress is fine, right? The actress acts very well. It's an Amazon show, you kind of expect it. But what the actress fucking does in the show is just beyond stupid. I don't know if they wanted her character to be unlikable, but her character to me is the most unlikable character in the show because she constantly does things that she then either regrets or has trouble doing. And then towards the end, she like almost completely flips character where she does things just out of character, where she's disagreeing with people she's agreed with the whole time. And then she flips again, and it's just she constantly flips and just causes issues. And I don't know why people are with her. But that's one of the main characters, Juliana. The other main character, Joe, I really like. So Juliana's a part of the Japanese side. Joe's a part of the German side, East. So the thing with Joe is young, and they really make a point to show that he's young because he's young. He doesn't know what to do, and as the series goes on, you could see he gets more confident in what he does. I'm not gonna say what he does, but he definitely gets more confident in getting a job done. And in the beginning, you could really tell, like, he seems like he's new to it, because this is the first time he's doing something like this, which is something I'm not going to spoil, but something he was told to do. And then later on, he just does it like it's nothing, because he knows it has to be done. Like, Joe definitely has some nice character development. Juliana doesn't. One thing that was kind of annoying, though, especially in the beginning, was there are so many coincidences in this show that, like, you would think it's so obvious it just takes you out of the show and you're like, all right, it's obviously a show because something this like this much of a coincidence wouldn't happen in real life. And the perfect example I could give is someone always throughout the show, you could tell the show was made by someone because they keep doing the same thing. They always have a character drop a very important item that distinguishes that character, and someone else who is the exact person who shouldn't find it finds it. Well, not major spoiler, but pretty big spoiler right here. Juliana leaves a paper somewhere. I'm not gonna say what's on the paper, but she leaves this paper somewhere, and this paper is left. I'll say where it is, in the middle of the road. This paper is left in the middle of a road overnight. Nothing is on this paper. This paper is literally just on the middle of the road, and there's wind because leaves are moving. So there's wind in this road. There's leaves. Nothing's holding this down. You would expect, okay, if a car passes by, it might run over it or it might like catch it with the wind. But no, this piece of paper stays there until the person who should not find it finds it, and because of this piece of paper, knows exactly what to do and causes conflict in the story. There's at least two instances, the paper being one of them. There's at least two instances I could think of off the top of my head where this happened, and I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. Like, it just didn't make logical sense, and there has to be some sort of, like, suspension of belief in shows, but I feel like for that stuff, it was just too much. It was really just too much, and it really got me upset. Now, one thing they do well, though, is with Juliana and Joe, when they're apart, because for most of the film, for most of the show, they are together. But for certain parts of the show, Juliana's staying on the Japanese side, Joe's on the German side. And they show that both of them are in a conflict, and they show it get resolved, albeit in different ways sometimes. But their conflicts occur at the same time, and there's scenes in the show where they go like back and forth really rapidly to show you like, okay, Juliana's in this situation and she's in trouble. Oh, now Joe's in this situation, he's in trouble. And it goes back and forth to show you how they're dealing with it, and it's happening at the same time, and it's really, really cool. It's really, really cool to see because both their things don't get resolved the same way. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but they've had multiple instances in this show where they're going through a conflict at the same time in different areas, and they're cutting back and forth to it, and it's so cool. That was something I really liked. Now, I said this before, but the acting was really good in this show. I don't think there's a character that really flubs up the acting. I don't agree with what some characters do in the show, but the way they acted it out was really good. I didn't notice anything bad about the acting. I didn't know any of the actors for the most part, but they were all pretty good. They all did really well. And, that's one thing that keeps you in the show. They act nice. there's a little like, not great acting. Like sometimes it falls like a little bit, but I would say it's like a stutter at most, and the rest of the show is just great acting. Now, one thing I do again love about this show, there's a lot of things I love and not a lot of stuff I hate. Because as I said in the beginning, this show did not contribute to my great sadness. I love some of the characters in this show. It's rare for a show to do something that this show did. This show created characters. I do not like what they're doing, but they're well written characters. I'm like flubbing up all my words right now because I'm so excited to talk about this. There's two characters, probably three in particular, I'm gonna name right now that are great characters. It's John Smith, who's on the German side, which is probably my favorite character. And on the Japanese side, it's Inspector Kido and Trade Minister Tagomi. There's a whole lot of other characters I really like though. Another main character that gets introduced later is Frank, which is the boyfriend of Juliana. I really like Frank too. And they all go through character development. There's characters in this show where they either go through character development or they get fleshed out as the show goes on. Kido is a prime example of this. Inspector Kido, as the show goes on, you at first hate him. I'm not going to say why, but you really dislike Inspector Kido at first. And he's a fucker. But me personally, and again, this is my opinion, so I'm going to share why I like him. I really like men who are like men. What the fuck does that mean? I'll tell you. It means a guy who knows what needs to be done, gets what needs to be done, and sometimes has to do it the hard way, or they command a lot of power and are very efficient. And like you can never really catch them lacking because they're always ready, and they just show a superiority of Sigma male energy. John Smith is a Sigma fucking male. Inspector Kido, as the show goes on, you see his motivations and you see like what he wants, as well as Trade Minister Tagomi. Tagomi, for the most part, you see early in the beginning that he's a likable character. But as the show goes on, even though I dislike what Kido did, I ended up liking him because of what he stands for and just what he does in general, sticking to his own ideals. I'm not going to say what those are, and I'm not going to say what he does, but this guy is a fucking man. The characters in this show, I'm telling you, it's really rare for me to see a character and like them, but not like what they do in the show. I think these characters are well written, and the things they do in the show either explain more of their like reasoning or show more sides of them, or it's just so good. It's just so good. Or like it basically just shows like how cool they are, or it shows they develop. I don't know what else to say about the characters. The characters are excellent. The characters really drive it home. Ironically enough, in the beginning of the show, when I first started watching it, I felt like Juliana and Joe, the two main casts, were like super uninteresting. I still hated Juliana. Throughout the whole show, I did not care to watch Juliana's side at all. Joe's side, super interesting. Juliana, the weakest character of the whole show, in my opinion. You get introduced to other characters later that somewhat become main characters, like John Smith, main character eventually, Frank, main character, and you get introduced to more that are recurring characters. They're side characters, but it's really good. The show introduces you to a lot of shit in the beginning. It levies it out in a good way. It puts it into like its own little boxes of okay, now here's this side, and I actually didn't go as spoiler heavy as I thought with this. I actually left out a lot of information, but for the most part, it's just really good. Season 1, really fucking great. The season 1 ending is super good. Like, I really don't like when shows do what I'm about to say. And I'm not going to spoil this part because it is the end of season 1. I won't spoil this for people wanting to watch it, whoever sees this. But it's really bad to me when shows portray themselves as one way and then turn into something else. I don't have an example off the top of my head, but it's kind of like the trope of, okay, this show is about fighting crime. And then as the show goes on and as it goes into like other seasons, oh, okay, we started fighting crime and now we're like going on an intergalactic adventure fighting space ghost aliens that want to sexually enslave the universe. It's like, how did we get from one thing to the other, right? Like sometimes shows just take big jumps because what they're doing is just a primer or a setup for what needs to be done later on. or they're just sick of doing whatever they're doing. I don't know what the fuck it is, but a lot of shows do that where like it starts as one thing that's decently tamed or it's in one genre, and then it transforms into something that's just ridiculous. This show has a major plot twist at the end of season 1. And it doesn't take it as extreme as the example I mentioned, because that was a outlandish example, I'll admit. But it does kind of change the pace of the show, and it kind of shows like, okay. And you get little inklings of it throughout the show too. It kind of shows like, okay, like we kind of get there's more going on here. Like this show for the most part is grounded in reality for a good portion of it, but near the end, and especially leading up to the end, you see snippets of like some stuff isn't making sense here. Like I see what's going on here. Like it just there's no logical way to explain things, and it starts getting a little crazy. And I'm very excited. I think season 1 ended in such an amazing way. It really makes you want to instantly watch season 2. And I'm holding myself off on it because I'm watching it with my group. But overall, if I had to give my opinion of season 1 of The Man in the High Castle, this show is great. The characters and writing are really good. There's not really much action scenes, which doesn't fucking matter. The acting's great, the characters are great, that's all you need to know. If you enjoy story and great characters, this is the show for you. And it's kind of like a mystery sort of show too, because there's a big thing, and I'll explain it. It's not a spoiler for the most part, but minor spoiler. The whole show is about a film, different films, right? And for some reason, both the Japanese and the Germans want to get this film as well as other people. They want to get these films. You have no clue what the films are. You see some of the films during the story, which I'm not going to spoil, but those films are basically the pivotal point of the whole story. And I'm glad even after season 1, we're kind of getting glimpses of what the films are and like what they really mean. But for the most part, even at the end of season 1, you're still left with the main mystery of what the fuck are the films and why are they so important. It's so crazy. There's a lot of stuff that isn't even resolved. Season 1, I would say, is a big intro to the whole thing because they introduce a lot of stuff. They basically show who characters are and what their motivations are, and they show the overarching like problems and what people want to do. So overall, season 1, Man in the High Castle, great. It's great. If you like story shows, it's a great show. Actions, whatever, there's some action, there's some suspense, but don't come into the show for that. I'm gonna keep repeating it. My opinion, great. So that's basically it. I'm gonna maybe give my opinions on other shit, maybe not, I don't know. I mean, I usually just leave it for the Chris Allen recaps, but this will be separate from that, because, I don't know, I'm just giving my opinion. So, it was great.